Hi, and thank you for tuning into my podcast. My name is Sergette, and this is my podcast, Unapologetically Brown. For those of you who've been listening to my podcast, a big thank you. And for those of you who are joining in for the first time, I want to say welcome and enjoy. So, on today's episode, we're going to be chatting about a topic that quite often sparks a lot of debate among our Indian communities, in our families and friendship circles. It's marriage. So we're going to be talking about arranged marriages and love marriages. And quite often that terminology makes me laugh because surely we should be all marrying for love. So on today's show, I've got a very special guest, Neelam, who's going to be joining me. I've known Neelam for now over 30 years, and she's become a very good friend to my family. And she has a very unique and intriguing story because she got married very young and she had a love marriage, which was it was a rare occurrence for that time for a Punjabi girl of her age to have a love marriage. And even though she may have been surrounded by friends and family members who were probably going down the conventional route of having an arranged marriage, where their parents were playing a central role into finding their partners for them, her parents took a very different approach. Her parents were modern and they were forward thinking. They were ahead of their times. They gave their daughters the go ahead to pave their own pathways and find their life partners for love. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Neelam because I'm so excited to get this conversation started. Hi Neelam.
Hello. Hi.
Don't look so nervous. Try and relax.
Okay.
So Neelam, we've known you for a while now, and you've been in and out of our life for nearly over 30 years now.
Long time.
So I want to take you back to our school days because we all went to the same school, Ella Wilkinson High School, but you were a lot older than me. You were actually good friends with my older sister, Geeta.
Yep, we were best friends.
Yeah.
In fact,
Yeah. And let's take you back to the age of 15.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my memory of you girls, you sisters, because you all went to the same school like we all did, was one where you were all so modern, so trendy. You were bright, beautiful girls, but you were the trendsetters in the school. And everyone wanted to be your friends. I don't know if you knew that at the time, but they did. So what are your memories? Let's go back to being back at school. What are your memories of being 15 and becoming friends with my sister?
I mean, high school for me was probably a fantastic time. I loved it. I honestly can say I absolutely adored it. I never really... So when we moved, so I was born in Wolverhampton, moved to London, and I was 10. And my father, the first job that he got before he bought his own businesses, he worked up in London, in Berwick Street, and that's where all the wholesale jewellers were.
Okay.
And then my uncle had a couple of shops on Carnaby Street. So we didn't really know any local areas. So when we moved to London, even to go and buy, your school uniform, we went to Oxford Street.
Yeah.
To Marble Arch. That's where we went. And so I think because of that, we always got to know the fashion, got different trend-setting ideas. We were never part of, where everybody else used to go.
Yeah.
And so to us, it was very normal. It was very, very normal. And I mean, we didn't see ourselves as trendsetters. I've been told that, but I didn't actually see it as being a trendsetter. But then the way I was brought up, I was always told, if you believe in something, and if you think that there's nothing wrong with it and you can justify it, then fight for it.
Yeah.
So I had a very, very good auntie, my dad's sister, the younger one. She was always my mentor.
She was quite modern, wasn't she?
She was very modern. And she used to say, if you want to wear a miniskirt, go on, just fight it. Go on, you can do it. Just say that, yes, this is what I want to do. And, justify your reasons. And it was all right. And she was very, very modern. And like I said, she used to encourage us to be strong. We were never told that, little girls should be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
It was, we were allowed to speak. We were allowed to say what we wanted to do. But we never hid anything from our parents. That was the one thing our parents always taught us. Don't lie about it.
Yeah.
We might not like it, but don't lie about it. We don't want to find out from somebody else.
Yeah.
So, you know, and we had that approach to life.
Yeah. And you were able to express yourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what you did at school.
Yes.
Which
Yeah,
is
it was
what
just
we
me.
saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be one that followed
Yeah.
fashion. I wanted to be one that, you know, just did what I wanted to
Yeah.
do. And sometimes that was different to everybody
Yeah.
else.
And of course, you became really good friends with my sister.
From the moment we started
And
high school.
our friendship even got even stronger because
Yeah.
your younger sister became my best friend.
That's right, yeah.
And we're still very good friends up to today. And I remember seeing her for the first time in the playground, and she had a very short boy haircut and bleached at the front.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my goodness, wow, I'm going to be friends with this girl. And our friendship just blossomed after that. And for me, it was a case of, I wish I could have parents like that who allowed me to do that. Did you ever feel that that's what people were thinking? Or did you think your parents were the norm? Everyone's parents were like that? Because after meeting us, you must have known, no, not everyone's like our parents.
Once I'd sort of because I got to know your family very quickly, because, you know, back in the day we would go to your house for birthday parties and for this, and you got to know our families. But I mean, I knew there was a difference, and I knew that I felt that your parents might have had a stricter way of bringing you all up. But me personally, I didn't see the difference, because at the end of the day, the goal was the same.
The traditions were still there, because your parents were still very traditional.
They were still very traditional. You know, my mum, she's Punjabi lady, always worn a suit. Right to today, you know, she won't wear any English clothes. Her English is very good. Spoken English is really good. But like I said, I think what everybody wants for their children is always the same thing. They just take a different route. And so as much as I thought, you know, I was lucky, you know, my parents didn't set a lot of rules, but the one thing that was the most important thing to them was honesty.
Yeah.
That was the most thing. And I think because we were given so much freedom to wear what we wanted, to go where we wanted, to be friends with who we wanted to be, and that was whether it was boys or girls, I don't think there was ever any kind of doubt in our heads that we were ever going to be dishonest to our parents.
Yeah.
So, you know, at the end of the day, as long as, like I said, I think some people take the approach that, no, we can't let our children do this. We can't let them go this way or that way because they'll stray. We were allowed to stray, but because we were given that opportunity, we never did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's one thing my parents were worried about, us being friends with you guys.
Yeah, which I never knew
we were
that.
going to stray. I remember you turning up to our house in they were like leopards. No, they weren't leopard skin. They were some snake skin.
Yeah.
Stilettos, weren't they?
Yeah, great.
And my mum could not take her eyes off them. But you could see the frown on her face. She really thought if we would want them, or Geeta would want them, and that was it. We were influenced, corrupted completely. And I know you never knew this.
No,
but
I
the
didn't.
thing is, I think what kept it going was you were such bright girls, and you were all very intelligent, and my parents could see that. So you and Geeta used to get up to a lot of mischief at school. And I think part of the mischief was with regards to meeting boys, did your parents always say to you and give you the open door, like, if you do meet someone, come and speak to us? Because in our household, it was a case of stay away from boys, full stop.
We never had that conversation.
Yeah.
I don't think my parents ever said to us, you can't talk to boys, ever. I mean, even in middle school, I remember there was a family across the road from us, and it was an older sister, then one of the boys was in my year, and then a girl was in my cousin Pin's year.
Yeah.
And then the younger brother ended up being Billy's best friend, you know, my brother Billy.
Yeah.
And so we used to get on the bus and go to school together, where he would go off to his school, to the boys' school, and I would go to the girls' school. But it was never a big deal. It was just like, you know, if anything, my mum used to think, oh, she's in safe hands, she's got somebody with her, she's got a friend. It was never about, oh, that's a boy, she can't talk to him. And, you know, and if I did ever bump into anyone, say I was shopping with my mum, you know, anywhere, and we bumped into anyone, I would never turn the other way and pretend I didn't know that boy. Because is the way I understood it. Well, what's to be ashamed of? If I speak to that boy behind, when you can't see me, so why would I not say hello when you're with me?
And as you were getting older, did your mum have those conversations about marriage to you? And
Oh,
no,
never.
So
I don't think I gave her a chance. If I'm honest, I got married so young.
you did get married
I
very
did,
young.
yeah.
So let's talk about that. So let's talk about how you met Rana. And because I know you and Geeta used to get up to a lot of mischief. We used to hear the stories, and that's a whole episode on its own, really. But how did that meeting come about?
I mean, I knew him through friends, through
Yeah.
mutual friends. And then at the end of the school year, so when I did back in the day, it was the O-levels, I did my O-levels.
Yeah.
And then there was the famous daytime gigs. And it was Hammersmith Palais. And it was the 4th of July. And I think we just clicked. It was just literally, we just clicked.
He was very young as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was 16 and he
Yes.
was 18. And I can remember going to work because I worked in Marble Arch in Oxford Street, and I can remember going to see my friend the next day on Saturday, at work, saying, oh, guess what? That guy, this guy that I happened to have mentioned before, I think he's going to ask me out. And it was just like, I had proper butterflies.
Yeah.
And then we met on the Monday, and that was it. That was it. History was made.
Yeah, and you knew straight away.
Day one. Yeah, 100%.
Did you tell your parents straight away?
I told my grandma after 3 days.
Yeah.
After 3 days, that's how much I just knew. And he told his mum within a few days as well.
And did you realise you were sort of breaking some boundaries? Because at the time it was a rare occurrence. It was, we talk about it now. It's the norm. People do find their own partners, but at the time it was a rare occurrence. We were seeing people around us being set up, introduced, arranged marriages among our circle. Certainly in my family, I don't know if it was different in your family, but
I mean, from what I know, my dad's younger sister, and she was a lot older than me. She was never forced to marry somebody. She was introduced to someone. Then a year later, my grandparents said to her, "Oh, do you want to marry this guy?" So, if anything, when I met Rana, I wasn't afraid of the fact that it was going to be a love marriage as such. I was more afraid of the fact that I was so young. Because I thought my parents are not going to be happy with the age, because he came from a very traditional family. And for them, it's a case of, no, nobody has a love marriage. And, if you're seeing somebody, you've got to get married to her really quickly. Whereas for me, it was my family were the opposite. No, you've got to educate, you've got to do this, you've got to take your time, you're way too young. And I was more afraid of the age element, that I was so young. But then between me and him, we just knew this is it.
And the wedding
Which is crazy.
Yeah, but the wedding did happen quite quickly.
It did.
Were your parents a little bit, no, Neelam, you've got to wait, or,
They definitely, my mum had a few chats with me on a few occasions saying, look, you're too young. You're just way too young to be doing this, just way too young. You just don't realise you've got to go, go to college, go to uni, do this, do that,
And you were so bright. You were very clever. You three sisters were, I think, at one point, the cleverest girls in the school.
I don't know about that, but Sharon definitely, my sister Sharon definitely was. She was very clever.
Not far behind.
Yeah. I mean, we all did well. We were always in top sets for everything. But I think, and that's probably our parents, one thing our parents taught us is that if you educate well, be smart, then nobody can sort of like tell you what to do, because you'll be smart enough to make your own decisions. And I think that's what my parents were afraid of, that I was so young. My mum, I had a few chats with her. She just passed her driving test. Aww. And so I thought, oh, this is perfect opportunity. She's in the car. She can't look at me. So I'll tell her in the car. And that's what I did. Mum, I've met this boy. And she's like, I'm driving. Don't talk to me. I'm like, no, I need to tell you now, because I was so afraid of telling my mum, because I knew what they were going to say. And
did you know marriage had to be on the cards? Because you're quite right in saying there are lots of families who probably were like Rana's. Once they've met their partner, that's it. There's no going around in secret or in
No.
hiding. They had to get married.
Yeah, I mean that's why
Yeah.
I think I pushed it with my parents, because he
Yeah.
literally said, and he actually said, he goes, my parents are introducing me to girls.
Oh gosh.
And I'm thinking, what?
Yeah.
No,
Did you
really?
do any creeping around for a little while, or did you just you got engaged quite quickly
We
after
started going out.
meeting?
I know, looking back now, it sounds absolutely mental.
Mm.
We started going out in July. So 4th of July was Hammersmith Palace. 7th of July, that was it. You know, we were a couple. And we just went into hiding from everybody.
Yes.
Not so much from the family, but from friends. We just disappeared. We were just on our own little planet. And by September, our families met.
Yeah.
That's how quickly
crazy,
everything
isn't
happened.
it?
And I think I didn't want to lose him.
Yeah.
And people said, but you're only 16. What do you know? I knew. And at 16, sort of like, you know, I had to then tell my mum. He'd already spoken to his mum. My grandma knew, but, you know,
Yeah.
she was good with me. And then his family was saying, no, we need to meet, because they were afraid. So they were the typical Indian family.
They were.
And they were afraid that people would see us together.
That's right. Well,
And then
that's
what
it.
were they going to tell people?
And that was the biggest fear, especially because they
Yeah.
lived in a community in Southall.
Yes, they lived in Southall.
Yeah.
We lived in Perryvale. And, you know, and they were so afraid, I think. So then all of a sudden, you know, it was the families met, and then it was okay. Then
Yes.
then everything was legal.
Yeah.
Everything
It
was
was all-
legal.
yeah,
It was
it
all
was all
okay. It was all
alright.
above board.
And then
But
the
yeah.
planning for the wedding started.
Yeah, the planning with the wedding started.
And you got married the following.
So we met one September, and the following September we got married. I was 17,
17.
he was 19.
Yes.
And you know what? People have had conversations, oh, do you regret anything? I don't regret a single thing. I honestly don't regret a single thing.
And going to the wedding day,
Mhm.
so the wedding, so, you know, our Indian weddings just go on forever. And you were so happy. I mean, I still see you on your wedding day because we were there. And, you know, this is how different our parents were.
Mhm.
My mum really didn't want us to go to the wedding.
Oh.
And Geeta was like, how are we supposed to miss Neelam's wedding, Mum? Okay, so we'd managed to persuade her to allow us to go, but we were told you cannot dance at the wedding. So we were told strict instructions, no dancing. You're to sit there. Again, Mum thought for some reason we get up and dance. Someone might like us, take a fancy to us, and God knows what will happen. So it was a really sort of different, again, very different families. Your family was everyone was on the dance floor, and you know, I mean, we did break the rules and we did dance, you know, but that's how different it was for us. And
I know. You reminded me about an incident with the dancing. So on my wedding day, because like I said, my mum and dad my mum and dad don't dance.
Yes, that's right.
Neither of them dance, and I think because they feel they missed out, they would always say, go and dance. You know, they wanted us. As a parent, if you think you've lacked something in your life, you want to make sure your children get that. And I think they always used to encourage us. And my father-in-law, because I was dancing, you know, I was like
you
ecstatic.
So
I was happy. I was so
happy.
And I was dancing, and my father-in-law came up to me and he said, oh, Neelam Butt, he goes, he always called me Butt.
Yeah.
He goes, Neelam Butt, he goes, oh, I think you should sit down for a little while. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I was like devastated. So funny, and I was like, oh my God. And then my dad saw me and I was sitting down and he said, what's the matter? Why aren't you dancing? And I said, because Rana's dad said, you know, I should sit down. He goes, no. He goes, you haven't thrown the rice yet.
Oh,
my dad said that to me on my wedding day. He goes, you haven't thrown the rice yet. He goes, you're still my daughter, go and dance.
Oh,
that's the
so
kind of encouragement
lovely.
I had.
Yeah,
you know,
so different, isn't
so
it?
different, yeah. And
so
you know,
different.
and it was just I was very looking back now at how people have grown up.
Yes.
And looking back at what we had, I can see there was a difference, but I feel so blessed.
Yeah,
we didn't feel there was a difference at the time. We thought everybody was the same.
Yeah.
But you know.
But I think my parents were very much like your in-laws, and that's something my dad would have said, or my mum, you've got to be a shy, timid bride, sit there with your head down and look like this is the worst day of my life, you know, sort of thing. And some of us didn't struggle with that.
Mm.
But, you were happy. You
Yeah,
found the
I
man
was
of your,
happy.
you wanted to spend
Yeah.
the rest of your life with. And so the prospect of being married was not daunting for you, but was
No.
the prospect of living with in-laws?
You know what? I had good training from your sister.
Yeah.
Because we used to be at school and we'd have this book and she would, because I knew nothing about our culture. Yes, we're brought up in a Sikh family, but very, how can I put it? We were very sort of like doing our own thing.
Well,
We
you
respected
were
the religion,
modern
but we were
and
just
you were ahead
modern.
of your time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably the best way to describe it. And so I didn't really know about what titles people have and what relation. And your sister would train me. She'd say, right, so what is the dad's sister called? What is the dad's mum, so and so called? What name would you give this person? And and she'd be testing me in our lunch breaks at school.
Oh, wow.
And that's what we did. And I've got this book and we used to just practice things.
Yeah.
I wasn't, because we always had my grandparents living with us.
Yes.
To me, that was the norm. So I didn't feel that I'm going to go to my in-laws and I don't want to live there. And I was just like, yeah, I'm just going from one house to another.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is that I don't think people actually realise it or understand it, is when you're young, you adapt very easily.
Mm-hmm.
As you get older, it's a lot harder to adapt.
It's more challenging, isn't it?
It's more challenging, and you've become set in your ways. You have your own lifestyle.
Mm.
When you're young, you're still learning.
Yeah.
And you're excited about learning. And, for me, going to another house I was looking forward to it. There was nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So,
and how was it for you? How was it? Because you had your mother and your father-in-law, and
Yeah.
then you had their mum as well.
Yeah, that's right.
And you
Grandma.
had two sister-in-laws.
That's right.
At the
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
And you're all living in one
At
house.
one house. Yeah.
Which was the norm.
It was the
People
norm.
were
Yes.
doing it.
People were doing it. That's
that's
the
how
way
it was. There was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean, like, one of my sister-in-laws got married very quickly after me, so about, I think it was 8 weeks after me. So she got married and went to Birmingham. And then the other one, we were like best friends, literally. She was only a year younger than me.
That's nice.
And yeah, and it was absolutely fine. I think the biggest culture shock that I had when I went there was the fact that the house was like Piccadilly Circus.
Yes.
And that was something I really struggled with. That was, if anything, that was the one thing.
Was that relatives coming and going?
Yeah, relatives coming and going. Like the doorbell would go at 8 o'clock in the evening, or even 9 o'clock. Or
wow.
Saturday, Sunday was literally like on the go. And that was, because I come from actually quite a small family. My mum's got a very big family, but they're spaced around
Spread
the
out,
UK.
yes.
So we don't get to see my mum's side very often. I mean, we're very, we get on really well with them. And then my dad's got two sisters and we were all quite close, but it wasn't like every day all the time. Whereas in the heart of Southall, if anyone was going to the airport, they'll pop through my mother and father-in-law's house. If anyone was going shopping to the Broadway, they'd pop in through my mother and father-in-law's house. We're going to come over for...
Sounds like a familiar story, Neelam.
So it was like, that for me, I found really hard.
Especially as a newlywed as well.
As a newlywed, and, and then I had my first baby very quickly as well. Yeah. And I found that really difficult. If anything, I mean, I can't speak more highly of my in-laws. Yeah. My mother and father-in-law were absolutely the best.
They were lovely people.
I was so close to them, before they passed away. I got on with them, so I can't fault them. Yeah. I can't fault them. And for me, moving into their home, and like I said, it was more society in the way people had that open door policy. I wasn't used to that. I just wasn't used to it. So I really struggled with that. Not having any privacy. Remember me and Rana went out for a year, 1 and a quarter year, and we used to have our space. We'd go out, we'd go to the park, we'd go to this, we'd go to, and then all of a sudden, it's like you have no privacy. Yeah. Every single moment is with everybody there and all the relatives coming in and out constantly all the time. That was the one thing, actually, if I'm very honest,
was hard,
that was the one thing I really, really struggled with. But then, having said that, I was so modern. That was a culture shock for me, but I was so modern. I think me being me was an even bigger culture shock for them.
Yes, yeah.
But I have to admit, my mother and father-in-law, they were very, very diplomatic
Yeah.
in how they spoke to me. My father-in-law was an absolute saint. Both of them were.
And they adapted to
They
your
adapted
ways.
to me
Yes.
so well.
Just
I think,
as you did to theirs.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, if I was going to go somewhere, you know, sometimes even my husband would be afraid to say, oh, you know, she's going to go there. And I'd say, well, no, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Why would I lie? You know, to me, lying, there's no reason for ever lying. And I would just say, no, well, I'm going here, you know, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going with so-and-so. And they'd say, oh, but, you know, And I'm like, no, it's all right. It's okay. You know, I'm going to go at this time. I'll be back at this time. So I was an even bigger culture shock for them because that's something they just weren't used to. But actually, I think they really respected me for the honesty because I don't lie. There's no reason to lie.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and like I said, you know, it's two different types of culture shocks. Me being the way I am, and me going into a family that had this culture that they lived in, the traditional, you know, and
it's like two different worlds coming together, wasn't it?
And we learned from each other rather than fight it. We didn't fight it. We learned from it.
And how did Rana feel about it all? Because obviously he was attracted to you because of this uniqueness and modern way of thinking. Did you ever talk about prospect of, because he was an only son, and of course when you're an only son you've got to stay with your parents and look after them. There's that cultural understanding there that most sons, especially being an only son, they have. Did he have those pressures on him? And eventually you did move. How did that all come about?
I think for us the biggest thing was, it was one thing when we're there, you know, just living there. I got to the point where even, you know, I used to feel everybody was watching me, and not from the family, but just in Southall generally. If I'd walk out the house, I'd think, oh, there's people at the bus stop looking, you know, and I think, but I've done nothing wrong. I feel conscious of the way and that all my life I've never felt conscious of the way I dressed or the way I looked or the way, you know, anywhere that I went to. And anyway, and then I think it was a case of when our daughter was born. So once Simran was born, then it was a case of, okay, we need to look at schooling.
Yes.
We need to look at where we're going to put our child. And then, you know, don't get me wrong, we did actually look at houses. We wanted to get a house with my in-laws.
So he was quite up for the idea that you know, Rana
well,
was
initially
that we're going to move.
we wanted to move with them.
Okay.
We wanted them to come with us. We actually looked at, you know, I remember there was one house in Ealing Broadway.
Yeah.
And it was a huge house, really nice one. Well, actually it needed work doing to it, but it was a huge house and it was a repossessed property. And we thought, look, Dad, let's get this. Let's sell our house, sell your house, and we'll move there. And me and Rana said, we'll take on the mortgage. But they wouldn't have it because they didn't want to move out of Southall. And then we had to make a decision. It was like, are we going to stay here or do we now think about our children?
Yeah.
And that's when we decided to move. And, you know, I mean, it was very hard. It was very hard for my husband as well.
Definitely.
You know, he wanted to move. He chose the house. I didn't even find the house. He found the house, which I never trusted him to do that. But he actually said, no, Neen, you've got to see this house. And, you know, it needed a lot of work, but he found it. We liked it. And we thought, right, you know, and we worked on it for 5 months before we moved into it. And initially, sort of like told my in-laws that we've seen a house and, you know, we've put in an offer. And they went very quiet, but they did not once say, no,
don't do it.
Why are you doing it? Not once did they fight with us. Not once did they argue with us. Like I said, they were very diplomatic. They were very good. And then I remember going into, once we'd moved, I remember my mother-in-law went to the kitchen once. We were at her house, Southall House, and she was washing the dishes and she had tears in her eyes and she was, you know, talking very, and I said, Mum, what's the matter? And she goes, you know what, people are going to say I've only got one daughter-in-law and I couldn't even keep her.
Oh.
And it broke my heart. I said, no, Mum. I said, no. I said, it doesn't matter what people say. Everywhere we go, whatever we do, we're going to do it together. And actually, people are going to say, wow, they don't even live in the same house. And look, they still do everything together. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
You know, so it was more about her being afraid again of what people were going to say.
Yeah.
And we had these two spaces, you know, so we had our house at Harrow and we had Southall House. And it worked fine. They weren't very, we used to go to Southall all the time.
Mm.
You know, we used to be there at least sort of like the weekends we were there all the time. My children used to stay there, you know, all the time. My son lived there for 5
That's
years.
nice, isn't it?
You know, so it was
Yeah.
very much one family
Yeah.
unit. We just happened to sleep in separate houses. And we never, ever let it feel like, I don't think there was ever a time that I can recall where I said to my mother-in-law and father-in-law, I'm not going to that, you go. Or they said, oh, we're not going. They went to all my family functions. I went to everybody's family functions because I was part of that family. It was just one unit. And again, so we broke the rules in the sense that, you know, we got married, you know, a love marriage, as they say.
At such a young age.
At such a young age. So we were the first ones to do that. I don't know anybody else, you
No,
know,
I
apart
don't.
from my, like I said, you know, my dad's sister, I think
We
that
didn't
was.
know anybody
so,
else.
Yeah. And then and then we went and bought a house.
Yes.
And we sort of like, you know,
and had a young
like,
family.
And had a young family.
Because you were very young when you had your first child as well.
That's right. I was literally, I got married on a Saturday, went to college on a Monday, and then I was pregnant when I was 18, and I had my daughter 1 month after my 19th birthday, which was very, very young. I had her in my Christmas holidays at college.
Yeah. But it was the dumb thing, you know.
It was the dumb thing. That wasn't unusual.
When I speak to my sisters and they had their 21st birthdays with their in-laws.
Yes, yeah.
You know,
I had my 18th with my in-laws.
Yes, of course you did.
Yeah, I had my 18th, and it was normal. It wasn't. I think, like I said, with my family, I think they were worried that I was so young. But my mum and dad and my mother and father-in-law, they got on so.
Isn't that funny?
Well,
they're so different.
Well,
yeah.
Their morals at the end of the day, their approach to life was slightly different, but their morals and their goals were exactly the same. Yeah. You know, and my in-laws were exceptionally honest people, and my parents are very honest people. So actually they got on really. In fact, I'd come home sometimes and my mother-in-law and my mum would be sitting, you know, talking about me. And I'm like, I can hear you. I'm in the kitchen, but I can hear you both, you know.
So, I mean, that's why they got on, because they had those traditions, didn't they, Neelam?
Yeah.
That they were trying to still hold on to certain things from back home,
yeah,
weren't
that's
they?
right. Yes, of course.
So you were starting your own family, young family, and you've had 3 beautiful children who are all now settling with their families.
Yes, that's right. Well, 2 of my daughters are married and my son is still single yet. Yeah. But yeah, they're all doing well.
Boys are always maturing lately.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
So was your approach, what did you take from your parents and your in-laws and, you know, mix it all up? What's your approach been to parenting?
I believe that you have to have trust. Yeah. You have to have trust. And me and Ronna were always very open with our children. We let them go to a lot of places. We literally used to sit them down and say, look, if you're in a nightclub somewhere and there's a fire there, we don't want to watch the news and think, oh no, isn't that awful? There's a fire going on. That's terrible. Those poor parents, you know. We don't want to hear from the news that there's a fire there and not even know that you're in there. You know, so wherever you're going, even if it's somewhere that we're not happy with, we'd rather know about it. So that was always the case with our children. Yeah. You know, if they really wanted to go somewhere, even if they knew that we weren't going to like it, they would still tell us. Then at least, you know, we knew where they were. Yeah. So we had to have, I always believe, I'm a big believer that in order to know what your children are doing, you've got to be their best friend. Yeah. You've got to be their best friend. Yeah. That's the only way you're ever going to know who their friends are. Yeah. That's the only way you're going to know where they are. And that's the only way you're going to get to know what they're up to. And, you know, if your children are in trouble, if you have that kind of relationship where, you know they can trust you and you're not going to just tell them off, it's more about the worry side. When they are in trouble, they'll come to you first. Of course, yeah. And to me, that's really important. Yeah. I don't want my children to ever feel they can't come to me when they need help. Yeah. So,
and that's really important, isn't it? Especially because your parents were like that with you.
Yeah.
And you were always able to go
yep.
to them. So we'll go on to the next chapter, and I know this is going to be difficult and it's going to be an emotional one. So please stop, Neelam, if you have to. Okay. So Rana, the wonderful man he was, and he was a father and a loving husband. Unfortunately, sadly, you lost Rana quite tragically, and I'm sure your world came crashing around you. And you're now how many years into that?
It's going to be 7 years in 3 months' time.
It seems like yesterday, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a very painful 7 years. We were together for 32 years, which, we started it. Looking back at it now, we think maybe that's why we got together so early. That was the plan.
That was your journey.
That was
the
our
plan.
journey. Because actually we've spent a lifetime together.
Yeah.
We grew up together. We grew up from being children to, adults, literally together. And and then everything went to pot.
Yeah,
everything
so
went
tragic.
to pot.
So I can't imagine. I really can't. And it must have been so hard. And if you struggle talking about this, stop. How was it for you in terms of culturally everything you were then expected to do, and the expectations of now being on your own and everything?
I think as a culturally, I think the people of our background, I don't actually think they understand fully. I can't say they don't understand fully people's losses, but they don't understand my loss. I think me and Rana I can't explain to anybody how in love we were.
Yeah, you were the love story of
we were,
our
we used to
time,
say, we used to talk about and think, Romeo and Juliet have got nothing. They've got nothing on us.
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet have got absolutely nothing on us. And we used to talk thinking, if our children grow up and they find someone and they're happy, even if they have half of what we have, they're going to do really well. They'll be all right. And I think people think when something happens, you have a loss, and it's not their fault, because I would probably think exactly the same. I was the same. You go to someone's house, you see them, you pay your respects, and then you keep in touch with the person, but the moment you've put that phone down, or the moment you've walked out of the house, you've gone back to your life.
Yeah.
And I think people don't understand how it totally just changes
the impact.
Every single thing in your life is changed, and it's really hard to adjust to doing things together, to being forced to do things alone. Making decisions is such a hard thing. Bringing up your children is such a difficult thing by yourself. Even though my kids are adult, it doesn't matter, because if you've got children, it doesn't matter if your child is 3 years old or 33 years old, they're still your children. And to advise them, and we've always advised them from young age to their adult ages, trying to advise them when you're a single person is very different to when you're advising them as two people.
Was Rana quite a hands-on dad? So
he was the good cop. I was the bad cop. Bless. Definitely 100%. I was the one that was always the bad cop, and he was always the good one.
You've got to have that dynamic in parents,
you have
don't
to.
You?
Yeah, I mean, we, to be honest, in our marriage, we had totally reversed roles.
Yeah,
he was such a tidy freak. He had complete OCD. He used to do all the ironing. He would forever be out there hoovering. I'd never have a dish in my sink. Kitchen was always clean. Absolutely brilliant. And he used to do a lot of cooking as well.
Yeah.
Anything to do with the men's jobs, I did everything. My builders, he couldn't even talk to the builders.
That's so
it was
funny.
like, oh, you better ask the boss. She's in the kitchen, or she's in talk to her. Anything to do with DIY or any of that kind of thing, that was always me.
Yeah.
So we were a really good partnership. We had slightly reversed
Yeah,
roles,
yeah.
but it worked for us.
Yeah.
And I think with any marriage, when you've got a partnership like that, whether it's in the right role or the reverse
Yeah.
roles like we were, you know, when you haven't got that other half of you, it's really difficult to cope with everything. I mean, Rana always dealt with all the finances. We've both worked really hard. He's worked really hard.
Yeah,
he worked
he did.
really
He
hard
did.
all his life, you know.
Yeah.
And I think just I've never paid a bill in my life. I didn't. Look, so you say I'm
Yeah.
modern.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
very trendy, and we were bright. I'd never even used a bank card
Oh,
in my
Neelam.
life until he passed away.
Oh.
Because I never had to. Because
Yeah.
we used to go shopping to Westfield nearly
Yeah.
every week.
Yeah.
Every week, and I didn't think about money.
No.
I didn't think about it because he always had it.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know what I used to earn. I never checked my wages
Yeah.
in the bank account. All our bank accounts from day one were joint.
Joint. Yeah.
And I never went to the bank. I never said to him, I have my wages coming. He would tell me, only your wages have come in.
Yes.
You know, I never took any responsibility for money.
So you've had to deal with all that.
Yeah.
As well as losing your husband.
Yeah.
Losing him. And then dealing with this. And of course, the grief around you, your family, supporting your children, supporting his family as well, as we do, because those are the cultural expectations we have.
They're
Are on
cultural
us, aren't they?
I think when Ronnie's dad passed away, that was a shock. We were on holiday. We came back. He retired Friday, and Monday he had a heart attack and died.
Right.
The
I
day we
remember
came back from holiday.
Yes. Yes.
And as a daughter-in-law at that time, I had to go into autopilot.
Yeah.
Because my husband and my sister-in-laws lost their father. My mother-in-law lost her husband. Grandma lost her son. My children lost their grandparent. In a crazy kind of way, they all had like a blood relationship. So I had to go into autopilot and just do everything that needed to be done.
Yeah,
you know, everything needed to be done. I had to go out and buy Dad's suit. I had to do this. I had to do that. And it was just autopilot. And then a year later, 1 year and 1 week later, thank you, my mother-in-law passed away. And we were all absolutely devastated. You know, my children, my husband, my sister-in-laws, everybody, my grandma.
Yeah.
And again, I had to go into autopilot.
So you had to be this pillar of support.
I had to be, yeah.
You had to be everything.
I had to do it. I had to just do it. And there was no question.
No,
I didn't question it.
You just,
I didn't question why should I do it. It's not my responsibility. No, because it was, you know, that's part of our culture.
Yes.
So as much as I was modern and trendy, to me, that was still very much a part of my culture.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I went into autopilot, and then grandma, you know, she was 95 years old at the time. Then me and Rana moved her in with us. So we looked after her for 5 years. You know,
That's
again,
tough.
That was really hard.
Again, was that something that was expected from you?
I don't think it, I don't know. I don't know whether it was, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. My father-in-law and mother-in-law did so much for me. They looked after my children so much. I couldn't have worked and had the life that I have today if they didn't do that for me. They supported me and Rana in every single thing. So there was no doubt in my head that I'm not going to have grandma. That, you know, I was having her at my house, full stop, end of.
Did that make you stronger, Neelam, do you think, having that support from them? And then, of course, Rana was always supportive of every decision you made. Did that make you stronger in a way to deal and cope with what has been ahead of you, you know, in front of you? I mean, think the loss of your husband, of course, that's, you know, but did it make you stronger in a way?
So with Dad, like I said, my mother-in-law was not as strong a person, you know, definitely not a stronger person. She was absolutely lovely. But my father-in-law was a very strong person. Very strong, very much like your dad.
Yeah.
You know, a pillar of the community. Lots of people knew him, and he made very wise decisions. Even when he was building his house back in India, you know, he would ask me. He would phone me up from there, or he'd say to me, "Oh, Neelam, I've got the plans. I'll have a look." You know, he would ask me. He was my
He
rock,
was consulting
and I
you.
felt I was, you know, the
Yeah.
one that was there for him. And so I got a lot of strength from him, because my dad is the opposite. He's absolute joker. He's really easygoing, laid back.
Yeah.
You know, my mum's very strong, but my father-in-law was very strong, and you know, he gave me a lot of strength to carry on the family as it should have carried on.
Yeah.
But then what happened is, I think because I went into autopilot so many times, did everything. When Rana passed, I went into shock.
Yeah.
And that, I think it was years of loss and trauma that I hadn't dealt with, because I was too busy looking after everybody else, that all of a sudden I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what to do. And my body just went into shock. And, you know, it was sad, because what happened, Rana passed away. And at that time, for the last sort of like 15 years or so, my parents had moved in next door. And, you know, Rana, he got on so well with my
With your
family, with my
family.
brother-in-laws, with my
Yeah.
brother, with my mum and dad.
They all respected him
They
so
they
much.
loved him.
There was
It
such
was
a
love.
it was a mutual
Yeah, very,
respect
very
and
much so. Yeah,
understanding.
he
wasn't
didn't
it?
treat them
No.
like they were his in-laws, just like I didn't treat my in-laws like they were my in-laws. In fact, I don't think in my marriage I ever said your mum or your dad.
Oh.
He never said to me your mum or your dad. It was always Southall mum and dad and Harrow mum and dad.
Yeah.
That's how we referred to our parents, you know, to distinguish who we're talking about. And I think when Rana passed away, so he passed away, and then 5 weeks later my grandfather passed away. And then the day after my granddad's funeral, my aunt's husband, my uncle, passed away. So in 7 weeks, we had three immediate members of one family
just taken,
just like that. And I think it was at my granddad's, when my granddad passed away, because it was at Christmas time, and there was a 2-week gap before we had his funeral. And after the first week, all of a sudden I got this thought in my head that, oh, it's Pups's funeral, but everyone's going to be looking at me. And that was when I just fell apart.
Yeah.
And I couldn't function.
It hit you.
That's when it hit me. I think up until then, when Rana passed away, it was bad, but I think a lot of it I blocked. I can't remember
it. Yes.
I can't remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
I think my body naturally just blocked it. I used to think, how do people?
Though,
yeah,
Neelam, I think you do block it. I mean, when Dad passed away, if someone said to me now, "Do you remember his funeral?" I have no idea.
No, I can't remember.
What?
I can remember.
I don't
little
remember
things, tiny things. I can remember.
You do block it.
I can remember when when it was just the immediate family left in the lounge, and we had to put the screws into the coffin, and everybody put one screw in, and when I was putting mine in, it wouldn't go in. And I said, see, he doesn't want me to leave him. Oh. So there's little specific things that I can remember, but most of the funeral, all those I can't remember anything. I just can't. But then it was when my granddad passed away a week later, that's when I really went into shock. And then I was really bad. I was to the point that, you know, I think if people saw me then, they would think she needs to be locked up in an asylum. I was shaking all the time. I couldn't focus. I couldn't eat. To look at me, I just looked like a zombie. Yeah. Just, I couldn't speak to anyone. I couldn't do anything.
It was something obviously you had to go through.
Yeah. And, you know,
and process.
It took a long time, and I had a lot of therapy. I had a lot of counselling for a good 18 months. And then I had, the best thing I did actually that really helped me was hypnosis. Yeah. Which is not something that I would ever even think of. It wasn't even something that I fully believed in. But I had hypnosis. And that was, I think, the one thing.
Was there something like culturally we don't as Indians, we don't talk, we don't do therapy, we don't do hypnosis, we
No.
don't do all that.
No, we don't at all.
Do you think that's what we need to be encouraged? We
Oh,
need to be,
100%, 100%.
yeah.
A year before Rana passed away, our son had a really bad accident where he broke his spine.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we hadn't gotten over that yet. It hadn't even been a year, and then Rana passed away. And looking back at what my son went through, you know, he's had trauma after trauma since the age of 11 to 21. Because when Granddad passed away, he was 11. When Rana passed away, he was 21. So young, and including his accident, he literally had 10 years and 7 traumas. And I wish that even when he had his accident, you know, I wish the hospitals or the NHS or somebody would have said he needs counselling.
Encouraged him to go for counselling.
Because having such a big accident, I mean, he was in hospital for 3 months. He was completely paralysed from chest down.
Yes.
And we never thought he was going to walk again. There were times where we thought, you know, he's not going to walk again, ever. And that mentally, and if we were feeling that bad, can you imagine how he was feeling?
Yeah.
And, you know, on the NHS part, and certainly as a culture, nobody even would think, oh yeah, he needs counselling. But actually, we all need therapy to help us get through these things. The cultural thing with us is you talk to your relatives when they come over and visit, and then that's it. And then everyone goes and you get on with it. Yeah. And it doesn't work.
And the door closes.
And the door closes, yeah.
And you're on your own.
And you're on your own, and you really are.
And it's that loneliness that doesn't get understood, does it?
No, they don't. People don't understand. I think one of the hardest things, which nobody would probably even think about, you know, because people think, oh yeah, she's, you know, they see me going to places by myself. Me and Rana used to be on the dance floor. We'd be on the dance floor, guaranteed every wedding. We were the last people to leave the function. You know, our children would be looking at us thinking, it's time to go, let's
Mum
go.
And Dad.
You know, but we were such an energetic couple. Yeah. So much energy between the two of us. And everybody knew it. Everybody knew it. And so now I really struggle. I really struggle to go to social events. I find it really painful. You know, a song will come on, or even if I go to the temple, you know, I find it really hard to go to the temple and not cry. I still can't do it. But I think the hardest thing, you know, the little things people don't realise, one of the hardest things I find to do on my daily life, in and out, day in, day out, I hate eating food by myself.
Oh gosh.
You know,
something as simple.
Yeah, every day I sit at the dining table and I can see the garden from where I sit, and I look out the garden, and every day I cry. Because, you know, I shouldn't be sitting there by myself, you know. And, you know, don't get me wrong, sometimes me and Rana wouldn't even sit at the table, but we'd certainly discuss what we're eating today. Yeah. What should we have? Do you fancy this? Oh, I don't want this. You know, it was like a done thing. You discuss food as a couple every single day, what you're going to eat. Or if you're not eating together, you know, you would discuss that.
Do you see yourself having... This is going to be difficult, Neelam, and thank you for opening up the way you are. But I really think these conversations have to happen.
Yeah, they do.
Do you feel you will ever have those discussions with someone else? Will your family or will our community culturally allow you to? You know, you'll never... The thing is, it won't be the same. We know that.
No.
It will be a different type. Do you see yourself and ever having that, or is that something you now just think no?
I think
because you're still young. You're only, how old are you, Neelam?
I'm 55 now.
It's not old, and I feel you've still got so much to give.
Yeah. I still have so much love inside of me.
Of course you do.
But I find, one, I didn't have an unhappy marriage.
No.
I think when you walk away from marriage because it's been really hard and you end up divorcing, I think to go off and start afresh is a lot easier. Because in your own mindset, you think, well, I had an unhappy time, so I'm going to go and find my happy time now. And I think people are a lot more accepting.
definitely.
Culturally, I think when you lose a partner, I mean, sadly, I'm sure you'll agree with me, there's times where men have lost their wives and they've gone and got married again straight away.
Absolutely.
And I find that so shocking that it happens so quickly.
Well, you know why it happens, because the mentality is so
Yeah.
different. When I've heard it, and I'm sure you
Yeah.
have, oh, he lost his wife, so
He
he
can't
needs someone
cope, yeah.
to cook for him.
Yeah,
Who's going to make his roti?
Yeah, I know, who's going to make his food,
that's why
who's going to do his
he's now
laundry,
got married again.
Yeah.
And what about the woman?
Well, this is where I
Yeah.
find our culture is so that I think they expect the woman to just get on with it. They recognise that a man has lost his wife, so there's certain things he can't do now, or he's going to struggle to do. You know, Rana was super independent, you know, when it came to household things, but they're going to struggle now. How are they going to manage? And so everybody automatically is on the case for that man to then sort of like, you know, settle down, find someone, go and be happy. But nobody says it to the woman. And I'm not expecting them. And, you know, to be honest, in my own head, I can't ever see that happening. I am lonely. And I think one of the things that's really important, you need a companion to talk to, and that I really miss. I wish I did have somebody that I could just talk to.
Yeah, because
someone that I can discuss things with. Sometimes you've had a hard day at work, complicated cases, you want to just vent, you know, and say, oh, this, and then you just need to calm down, and you need somebody to calm you down. Sometimes you're upset, you just need someone to hold you, to say, it's okay. It's going to be all right. And that I don't have, and that is what I really miss. And I wish I had that. I wish I could have that.
And the prospect could be there, or do you not? Because your children, at the end of the day, your children, as much as you love them, and we all do, and the relationship is not.
No,
you know,
it's
and
not.
you don't necessarily want to tell your children everything.
You can't
and
tell
you don't
your
want
children.
to offload on your children everything.
You, with your partner,
it's totally different.
It's completely different. You can say anything to your partner, and you know it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You can talk about your children to your partner.
Of course.
You can talk about your parents to your partner. You can talk about your brothers and sisters. You can talk about your friends. You can talk about work. Anything at all, because you know it's safe. Because it's a conversation that you've had between yourselves, and it really isn't going beyond that person's ears.
Yeah.
With your children, you can have a conversation with your children, but then you have to be prepared to listen to an opinion. Sometimes when your partner gives an opinion, it becomes comfort and it makes you think twice. Okay, when your children give you an opinion, sometimes it really hurts. And my husband could have said something, and I take it in my stride. My children say the same thing to me, and because he's not there now, I'm by myself, I can take it completely in a different way. Very, very different way. So, you know, I really miss that. And I wish I had that. You know, I wish I had that. I wake up every day saying, Ronnie, where are you? You know, and I talk to him a lot. But I don't know whether that will ever... I don't know if I will ever be ready, if I'm honest with myself.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, one, I don't see how anybody could compete, you know, with him,
and what
because
you had.
and what we had, because you know, in my eyes, he was absolute perfection. He was 100% complete perfection. And then, secondly, you know, I never want to upset my children. I'll tell you a story.
Yeah.
So we went shopping. I went with my daughter, because me and Ron, I used to go to Westfield all the time, and ever since then I've struggled, you know, to sort of go.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time before I could go again. So I went with my daughter and the children, you know, the little ones. And so her and her husband were going to shop. I said, look, leave the girls with me. It's all right. And I'm a big fan of Keanu Reeves. Big fan of Keanu Reeves. And we saw a poster. And it's one of those digital posters. I said, oh, Maya, you see that man? I said, what did I say? I said something like to her. I said, if he asked me out, I said, I'm going on a date. And she goes, oh, okay. And I didn't think anything of it, because it's Keanu Reeves. He's not going to come up to me and ask me out. You never know. You never know, but unlikely. And then we were walking around the shopping centre, and then after about 15 minutes, she goes, Nunny, she goes, you know that man? She goes, are you going to marry him? I said, what man? And she goes, you know that man on that poster who you said that if he asks you out? And I said, Maya, no. I said, he's just an actor. And she goes, oh, that's okay then. It was the relief on her face.
Wow.
Just like I didn't think
How
anything
old
of
is
it.
she?
She's 8. She's nearly 9.
Gosh.
But at that time, that was probably about a good 2-3 years ago. So she might have been about 6, 7.
So
You
she
know.
was thinking, is
And
he going to
yeah,
replace? Yeah.
it totally, for that 15 minutes, I think she went quiet, and it was going round and
Round in
round
her
in her
mind, a
head.
little head, yeah.
Because she said to me, she goes, but I thought you loved Nana.
Oh.
And I thought, oh my God, I've got to be careful what I say about Keanu
Reeves.
Reeves, But it's, I talk to my grandchildren a lot. If anything, I probably don't speak to my children about my husband that much, because I don't want to upset them. But my grandchildren, I talk
You
about
want
him.
them to know him.
I want him to be a part of their life.
Yes. Yeah.
And the only way to do that is if I constantly talk about him and say, well, you better not do that because, Nana's not going to like it. He doesn't like mess, things like that. And I was just so shocked at her response, that she was literally heartbroken. That the thought that Nunny's going to go off
with
possibly marry Keanu Reeves. But,
Does that hold you back in a way?
It does.
Yeah.
It definitely does. Not the opinions of anybody else, but the opinions of my
your
children.
family and your children.
Yeah.
Okay. Being married to Rana, you obviously had friends you were socialising with as couples. And has that all sort of stopped for you in terms of what's people's perception of you? How did things change for you as being a young widow? You've lost your husband and you had a network of friends. You were probably socialising as couples. Was that all gone or taken away? Did people view you differently?
I'll be honest, a lot of our friends, we have friends, but they were like family friends and work friends. It was most of the people that we did socialise with were actually family.
Yeah.
Whether on his side or my side. But I think, I don't know how their view has changed. I know how people's reactions towards me have changed.
How is that?
In the sense, I find people, maybe it's just me thinking too much, but if I go somewhere and I can see people sort of like it's changed a bit now. It's been a bit of time, but at the beginning it was like, they'll say hello, hello, hello. Then they get to me and it's like, oh, hello, how are you?
Oh gosh.
And I find that when everybody has that reaction, it triggers it.
Yes. Yeah.
It was hard enough for me to go places, and it still is. I don't like going places because we didn't do things alone. Me and Rana did everything together. Every function we went to, if we went out with other people, other couples, it was always me and him. We were like a joint thing. It was like one entity. And I think, again, I don't think people really understand how painful it is for me to go somewhere. Because, I was young, I was in my 40s.
Yes.
And most of the people we know, they're all still together in couples. And I don't for one bit resent anybody still having what they have, because I think, hold on to it and enjoy every minute of it. That's my attitude to life. Enjoy it. If you've got it, don't forget that you have it. Enjoy it. But it's very painful for me not to see them have what they have, but it's painful for me to not have that anymore.
Yeah.
And when I have to go somewhere or people invite me, I find it really painful. I think, if you've been invited to something like a wedding or a birthday party, sometimes it will take me half an hour to write a card.
Yeah.
Just to write, I stop, I write who it's to, and then when it
comes to
when
who
you come
from.
right, who from, and I'll be honest with you, most of the time I still write from me and him. I can't find the strength. I think we went to a wedding a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was the first time I didn't put his name down. Most times I still put his name down.
Yeah.
Because I just find it really hard to, I suppose, accept that I'm by myself now. But I think a lot of people, I've been very surprised, a lot of people have disappeared.
Have they? That's interesting.
Yeah, which
Do you think it's out of they don't know what to say? They don't know what do you think?
I'll be honest with you, I really don't know. I can't. Maybe people didn't understand the pain that I was in and how bad I was, after I lost him.
Yeah.
But some people have just literally, I've just never heard from them again, never seen them. Nobody ever, certain, and this is, on, my family's very small, and, but on Ronnie's side, huge family.
Yes.
Lots and lots and lots of people. And there's some people that I thought I got on really well with them. And I've just never heard from them. And actually, because I thought I got on with people, that really hurts.
I don't know you not to get on with anyone.
No,
Nina.
I'm so easygoing.
Yeah.
I'm just,
I think sometimes people maybe find it difficult.
Know, yeah,
I
think they just don't know what to say and
deal with it. It's no excuse, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I do think a lot of people are very much like that because, again, it comes down to our community as well and our culture and how we tend to hide away from things and don't discuss things.
Maybe they just feel that, what's happened has happened now. We need to let her get on with her own life.
Could be.
It could be that. I really don't understand.
But you have done some brave things, Neelam. Your daughter got married and you went through that.
That was really hard.
And again, being an Indian, Asian, Punjabi woman, to have to do a lot of it on your own, the daughter's wedding.
Very difficult.
So difficult.
Very, very difficult.
What were the challenges like for you in terms of, again, you're having to support your daughter. She's having her own moments of missing her dad. You're having your moments and you're having to put on a wedding.
I think when it comes down to how I cope, my coping mechanism with losing him is being busy.
Yeah.
Busy. I just got, I've constantly got a list going on the side of my bed, and I'm ticking things off. And the moment I feel down, I'll think, okay, what was on the list? I need to clean the windows. I need to do this. I need to do that. And I think when it came to the wedding, and it was COVID.
Oh, yes, of course it was.
It was during COVID and it was so hard. We had 3 function halls cancel on us at the last minute.
Yes.
And in the end we ended up having the wedding in my garden.
That's right. I remember.
And it was beautiful. It was lovely. But, I had a very good network of close family who helped me a lot.
Yes.
And I could just rely on them. And no matter what I said, they would just do it.
They were there, yeah.
And I know and I think everybody probably thought, oh, she's going to fall apart. I have to admit, I did everything. And, right down to the tiniest little details, the flowers, the this, the that. It was fine. It worked out fine. But it wasn't the same, and I remember when my first granddaughter was born, we were driving to the hospital, and then just before we turned the corner to the hospital, my son-in-law phoned us and said, oh, Mum, it's a baby girl. Oh. I can remember both of us crying in the car. We were so happy.
Yeah.
And now I've had, 2 more grandchildren since then. Yes. Sim's had another little girl, and then Sienna's got a little boy. And, and I cry because I'm so happy, but at the same time I'm crying because why isn't he here to see it? So everything now is bittersweet. I still have all that happiness, about the future and what I want for my children, but it's so sad that he can't see it. And, I'm lucky. I do have a good support network, very, very good, and there are people that I can rely on no matter what. They're there, but culturally, I think, like I said, I couldn't quite understand how so many people
just moved away, just disappeared.
yeah. I don't know whether they were doing it
Strange.
for me,
Yeah.
or whether they were doing it because they don't know what to
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
or
Because people do, people do lose loved ones. Sadly, it happens across the
yes,
board.
of course it does.
But I think what makes it really challenging for us and difficult is our culture in many ways. There's
Yeah.
so many, even the grieving period, even the funeral, the expectations of that, the
Yeah.
plan, all of that. It's really quite heavy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's heavy stuff. And I know things are changing. And again, it's probably another episode, but I do think things are changing for the better when it even comes down to the grief of it and
Yeah.
grieving and we're allowed to do certain things that we wouldn't have been able to do 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And funerals are turning and changing for the better. But I do think it is because there's still those expectations,
Yeah.
isn't there, culturally?
I mean, culturally, if you think about it, I mean, I've lost Rana, and there's so many people that have really stepped back, and I just,
Yeah.
haven't really. Whereas I thought I was very close to people, and yeah, when there's functions and stuff, everybody expects me to be there.
Yes. Yeah.
That part of the culture I don't understand.
It. You're expected to put your face on and off you go.
Just get on with it.
Yeah.
You've got to be there. What do you mean you're not coming? You have to come.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what about all those years now in the last 6 years? Where was everybody then? And that I find, because if people knew what I was going through, people would have a different outlook towards me.
Yeah.
And they'd be more understanding. But I find people don't understand. What do you mean? You have to do it. You do have to do it. You've got to be there. You've got to do that. That's what we have to do.
That's what we have to do.
That's what we have. That's what I get told.
Yeah.
It's what you have to do.
Do you openly? Do you think it's because we don't talk about it? Do you think that's another problem?
It is, but I think now, I mean, it's like I said, it's going to be 7 years.
Yeah.
And I am mentally exhausted now. I am mentally exhausted now.
Yeah.
And I think I've got to the point now where I'm ready to just say no to a lot of things now. And it's taken me a long time.
It's taken you a long time.
Credit to those people who have been in my situation. They've just stepped back and just gone away. I didn't do that. I still tried to keep that cultural thing going, more for my children, I think, more than anything else. Especially like for the kids, you don't want, the way I see it, I've lost Ron, my kids have lost their father, but then I don't want them to feel that they've lost their father's family.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I keep thinking, no, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. Funnily enough, my own family, when I get invited to things, I say no.
Yeah.
I'm strong enough to say no.
No.
Because I say, look, I can't do it, or, I've got something going on and this, that and the other. And I actually say no to a lot of functions and events on my side. And then when I have a quiet chance to speak to someone, I say to them, look, I'm just not up to this. And they understand. But I find it very hard to say no to my husband's side, because it's cultural expectations.
From a daughter-in-law.
From a daughter-in-law point of view.
Yeah.
And I think it's, like I said, I'm mentally exhausted now. And, I'm a few more years and I'll be retired,
Well, yeah.
And I just want to be content.
Yes. Yeah.
And as happy as I possibly can be.
Yeah. Because you have still got so many years ahead of you.
Yeah. Nobody knows.
How do you, I can see you clearly still, are going through the motions. You're still dealing with a lot of things there. But I can clearly see also you're in a better place than where you were.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if I said to you, Neelam, would you ever go back and do things differently? The only thing that would change is Rana would still be here.
Yeah.
Of course he would.
Yeah. honestly, I went shopping one day, and it was just, I was at the till, and just this young girl, and she said something. We were talking about goodness knows what, and she said, "Oh," she goes, "if you had your way," she goes, "wouldn't you go back and do things differently?" And I looked at her and I said, "No."
No.
I said, "I really, really, really wouldn't."
Yeah.
You know, up until that point of him passing, I don't think there's a single thing
You would change.
that I would change. I mean, Rana was, you know, football fanatic, and that was,
Yes.
it took me 10 years to accept that actually I'm number 2 in his life. Number 1 was
This
his
is
Man
football.
United, it was his
Yes.
football,
Yeah.
you know, but other than his football, I could, and even that I'm not faulting at all.
No.
That was him.
Yeah, of course.
And I walked into that, you know, knowing how crazy he was about football. But other than that, I don't think there's a single thing that I would change, because we were like two, like literally like two shooting stars just heading towards each other. And just as we got there, we exploded.
Oh, that's
And it
such
was
a
the
nice
most
way of putting
beautiful
it.
explosion.
Yeah.
And it just lasted
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
It just lasted forever. I don't think that's ever going to go away.
No.
You know, I tell myself the one way that I survive, culture or no culture, you know, the one thing I tell myself is that I refuse to fail. I don't know religious wise, you know, what our religion says, whether we're coming back or we're not coming back. I don't know. I read a lot, and, you know, I'm not particularly religious person, but I do believe in God. But I tell myself that, you know, I believe that we do come back to live lives. And I think when each life that we live, it's a lesson. We're all learning a lesson. And what I'm afraid of is that when I go up there and God says to me, well, you know what, in this life, you had to learn to lose your husband, to learn, you know, to lose the most important thing in your life. And he really was. And you didn't do very well. So you're going to have to go back and do it again. So that's how I tell myself, I'm not going to fail, because I'm no way coming back and losing him a second time.
Oh.
You know, from day one we met, we were on a bus going to nowhere, literally just wanted time to ourselves, 16 and 18. And I think the first time we kissed, and I must have told everyone at his funeral, all the aunties and everyone, I was telling everyone. I was going,
You were
you know,
a bit
I
off your
was.
head.
I totally, because I just,
yeah.
And I was telling everyone, and, you know, the first time we kissed, I looked at him and said, is it me? Or did that feel like, you know, that wasn't the first time? And he said to me, he goes, yeah, he goes, it feels like we've been doing that forever, sort of thing.
Oh, God.
And from that moment, I really believe that we were together before. And, you know, if I found him before, found him this time, I'll
You'll
find
find
him
him
again.
again.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to fail this life. I have to, you know, the house that we're in, we chose it together. He passed away before we could move in. And then a year later, the house came up for sale again. And my kids were like, you got to get the house. You got to, you know, the house is up for sale again. And I got it. So I feel that he's there with me.
Yeah.
You know, he went to that. I went, him and our granddaughter Maya. We walked to the end of the garden. We walked in every room together. We chose it together. So, you know, I've got my house, and, you know, my children, I want them to have their own lives. I don't want them to worry about me. But I've got my grandchildren.
Yes.
My grandchildren, I dote on them, and they are amazing.
Yeah.
They're absolutely amazing.
Mm.
You know, so I've got them. So I keep myself busy. I love my job.
Yeah.
You know, I work crazy hours, but I do love my job. I have the opportunity to help people.
Yeah.
I just keep myself busy.
Busy.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't rule anything out in the future.
No.
I really don't.
Yeah. Which is a
Because,
good
you know,
approach.
yeah. I can't see things happening. But, you know, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow.
And I think that's some good advice you're giving yourself.
Yeah.
And I think if anyone, well, I hope people are listening to this podcast, that's the advice you would give to other women.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Who may be in your shoes.
Yeah. You know what? Nobody should be unhappy. Nobody should be unhappy. And I think if you have an opportunity to, and I was really happy.
Yeah.
And for myself, I think the biggest question is that happiness enough to last me to the end of my days?
Yes. Yeah.
You know, at this moment in time, like I said, I keep myself busy, very busy. You know, I love my job.
And you
In
have
my
those
job, yeah,
memories.
I have the most amazing
Yes.
memories. I honestly have nothing bad to say about him. He was a bit of a nutcracker. He was when it came to you know, proper football hooligan, but you know, he was perfect.
Yeah.
We were perfect.
You
We were
were.
perfect, and I think culturally, I wish our culture would support more and say the right things, because
I
they
think that's the
don't.
thing. It's the support, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you want to hear them say, go and do what makes you happy,
Happy.
but they don't say that.
And we yearn for that, don't we? We
Yeah,
yearn for the pat on the
yeah,
back. We
yeah,
yearn for everyone to look at us and say, she's doing okay for the
yeah,
community. She's doing okay by her family, her
yeah.
in-laws, her parents, her everybody, you
Mm,
know, because that's how we were
that's
brought
how
up.
we were brought up. It's to please everybody
Yeah.
else.
But Nina, you know, it's been so good having you here today.
Thank you for
You
having me.
really have been an amazing guest. I've really had to hold back the tears.
Oh, bless
Really
you.
have struggled. I can't tell you how much this has meant to me, and I hope it's gonna give some reassurance to other women like
Yeah.
yourself. You know, you've been so brave.
I mean, I hope, you know, I don't think any woman in my position should just think their life is over,
No,
because it's not.
no,
You know, as much as I was whole before and now I'm not whole. That's how I feel. But life has to carry on. And I think you have to be strong with culture. And if you don't get the support that you need from culture, I'm at the point now, I think, okay, it's time. I need to be strong for myself. And if it means I have to step back from certain things, then I have to step back.
yeah,
And it's taken me a long time to understand that.
and maybe just doing things
Yeah,
differently.
and do things differently. And I feel
That's what it
myself
will
at a
be.
turning point now,
Yeah.
you know, where I think, okay, actually, I can say no.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Brilliant.
So, on that note, I just want to again reach out to Neelam and say thank you. She's been the best guest. I think we should all learn, really. It doesn't matter what side of the argument we are, of arranged marriages or love marriages. I think it's something that we need to embrace. But we should always remember that whatever route is taken, it should be for the right reasons. Just like Neelam took that leap of faith, she did something different. She broke some boundaries, and that's when the magic happened for her. And I think culturally we need to understand that. And I think there is still lessons we need to learn from Neelam's story. And again, I think we need to do that by having these conversations among our families and friends and communities. So, again, if this story is resonating with you, today's episode, you can relate to emotionally, have those conversations with someone you know who might be going through the same thing. On that note, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for joining me on today's podcast. And please, please join me for the next episode. Thank you.